Hello and welcome back. I'm Nicole, a cottage witch, and today I thought I'd do the mid-year tag. So I watched Spirited Stardust do a mid-year tarot tag to discuss decks you've used for the first half of the year, and they said that apparently this began as a mid-year book tag. So because I like both really quite a lot, I thought I'll just do both at once. I couldn't be bothered separating them out into two different videos because that's just extra work. So, mid-year tarot and book tag. So the first question is, favorite book or deck you've read or used so far in 2023? And I have a couple favorite books. One I'll have to include a picture of because it was an audiobook, which was New World Witchery, which I just finished listening to a couple days ago. And then this one I read at the beginning of the year. This is The Ode Less Traveled by Stephen Fry. It is fantastic. If you have any interest in poetry at all, even a passing interest, his passion for poetry is so obvious, and it's such a fun book to read, and really makes everything really easy and enjoyable and relatable. Basically, he was the English teacher everybody deserved. So I loved that book. That was a lot of fun. And my favorite deck so far this year has definitely been the Tarot Avatar. Whoops. Which is in some kind of order at the moment because I'm using it for the deck and walk. And I can't get over this deck. The artwork is endlessly fascinating. It's so well produced. And this is super fun too, the gilding. So yes, that's my favorite deck so far this year. Question 2, a new book or deck that came into your collection this year. So just yesterday, I passed a little free library and found The Absolution by Yrsa Sigurdardóttir. She's an Icelandic author, and I love her books. They're so atmospheric. They're not quite cozy mysteries. They're a bit creepy, but not horror exactly, except I think for her first one, which is a bit more blood and guts. But the other ones are more atmospheric, eerie sort of feeling, and I really enjoy them. And so I'm looking forward to reading this one. I haven't read it yet, so obviously I just got it yesterday. Although her books are the sort that I probably could read in a day if I set out to do that. And a new deck that came into my collection is the 7th Sphere Tarot de Marseille. And this is also sort of in order because I am going through Benebell Wen's tarot card by card, I think she calls it. I can't remember. I'll link it below. Anyway, I never thought I'd get a Tarot de Marseille, but this one, the color palette is very much my thing. And again, the production quality is so good. So yeah, I've just gotten this one very recently. So it's still, I'm not super familiar with it yet, but I'm enjoying it so far. Okay, question number 3. The most anticipated book or deck release this year. So I have probably a few for this one. I was really looking forward to, and I just recently got it, the book by The Hidden Culture and History and Science of Bisexuality by Julia Shaw. I've loved her 2 previous books, so I'm really looking forward to reading this one. So that's one that has recently arrived, and I'll start reading, I don't know, soonish. The other books I'm looking forward to are The Green Witch has a new book coming out called Herbal Magic. So I've pre-ordered that one. And an author, Wabgeshig Rice, he's Ojibwe, I believe, from what's now Ontario in Canada. Yeah, here we go. Wasauksing First Nation. and lives between Sudbury and Wisconsin. His first book, Moon of the Crusted Snow, is stunning. It is one of the most beautiful, eerie, again, atmospheric books I've ever read, and I loved it. I loved it so much, I got the French version, which I haven't read yet, but I'm planning to reread before the sequel comes out, which I think is supposed to come out sometime this fall, and it will be called Moon of the Turning Leaves. So as I understand it, in Ojibwe traditions, the different months are divided up by the different moons. So Moon of the Crusted Snow is that month of the year when the snow has that crust on the top. It's not quite fluffy. It's got a slightly icy crust on top. And so Moon of the Turning Leaves, I'm imagining, is sometime in the fall. But I guess I'll have to wait to read the book to find out for sure. And the most anticipated deck, I think, is the Unfolding Path, which apparently is coming out mass market. So I'm looking forward to that one because I had looked at the indie one, decided not to get it at that time, and then when I was more interested, it was out of print then, but apparently it's coming out mass market now, which is lovely. So I'll get that one. Number 4, biggest disappointment. I haven't had huge disappointments so far, so these are sort of mild disappointments. One of the disappointments was I got Marjane Satrapi's new book, Poulet au Prune, which is a graphic novel. She's the graphic novelist that wrote, where is it here? Persepolis. And this book I loved so much that I think I probably just expected something different for Poulet au Prune. And it wasn't what I expected. So it's probably my own fault. I was disappointed, but there we are. The deck, I haven't been disappointed with an actual deck, but the thing that I was disappointed by, as I think many people were, was the guidebook to the Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So if they ever reprint just the guidebook, I'd get that, but I am enjoying the deck so far. And it's now extra purple because I've edged it in purple. So I love the deck, but the guidebook was disappointing because it was just so inaccurate. Number 5, biggest surprise. For me, I think the biggest surprise so far was New World Witchery. I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but I really enjoyed how both diverse it was culturally and how wide-reaching it was in terms of the different types of practices. And so that was, again, maybe a difference between what I was expecting and what he actually delivered on, but in a positive direction, because I think he did a really exceptional job of covering so many various North American cultures really quite respectfully. So that was lovely. The biggest surprise. Oh, I surprised myself, as I think I mentioned just a minute ago, but I have a memory like a sieve, by getting a Tarot de Marseille deck. I didn't think I would ever get a pip deck because I didn't think that was my thing, but apparently it's becoming my thing. I don't know. So I've been learning about this, learning about the various traditional ways people have read both Tarot de Marseille and playing cards, and so that's been really quite fun, actually. So the deck itself wasn't surprising, but I surprised myself. Number 6, a book or deck crush. So aside from Tarot Tara, which I adore so much, my other crush, I would say, would be Tarot Deciphered, which I read as an audiobook, listened to as an audiobook, I guess. Where I wrote it down here because I can never remember the name, the Fortune's Wheelhouse podcast by the same authors, T. Susan Chang and M.M. Moline, and it is just so thorough, so well done, covers so many topics for every single card in various traditions, not just Rider-Waite-Smith. And I was just astonished by that, by how much work they put into that and how much passion they clearly have for it, and they know what they're talking about. So that has been a lot of fun to listen to. Number 7, book or deck that made you cry. So there was no deck that made me cry, I don't think, so far. But a book that has made me quite sad and a bit nauseous is Namwayut, A Pathway to Reconciliation by Chief Robert Joseph. He is Indigenous in Canada, somewhere out in BC. I can't remember for his nation. Guawinuk? I'm probably butchering that pronunciation, sorry. Anyway, he has written this memoir called Namwayut, which means we are all one. And it's a beautiful book, but it does outline the abuse that he experienced personally at a residential school, which is fairly horrifying. And then also the sort of abuse and theft of culture and land and that sort of thing that Indigenous people generally have experienced. So it's a bit, it's easy to read in that the writing is not difficult to read, but it's hard to read in that the subject matter is not cheerful. However, I think it's important to know about these things and to understand how much damage was done to these kids as kids when they're, developing and learning their way in the world. And they experienced so much pain. And so that really shaped quite a few generations of Indigenous folks, even as adults, who are still struggling with some of these things. So I think it's a very good book, but it did make me very sad. I'm only not quite halfway through. So I haven't finished it yet, but the parts I've read so far are heartbreaking. So that would be the book that made me cry. Book or deck that made you happy. So the deck that made me happy is the Buffy deck, because I didn't watch Buffy growing up because I grew up in a fundamentalist Christian community, and so it was evil and of the devil and so on and all that sorts of nonsense. But I watched it a few years ago for the first time, and I started rewatching it because it's just that much fun. Tara and Willow are a couple of my favorite TV characters ever. So I'm really enjoying going through this again. There are a few things I can't remember, so I've started rewatching the series to remind myself of who a few of the characters are, but yeah, really enjoying this deck. It just makes me smile. The color palette also makes me smile. I know it's not for everybody, but it very much suits me, so I'm having quite a lot of fun with this one so far. And the book that made me happy, well, most of them made me happy, but if I had to pick one, I would say sometimes at Christmas I start rereading The Lord of the Rings, because that just seems like a good thing to do around that time of year for some reason. And this year I listened to the audiobooks in English. No, I read them in English and then listened to the audiobooks in French. That's what I did. And so next year, I think, like this coming Christmas, I'm thinking of actually reading the books in French, and that'll be quite a lot of fun. It's such a fun world to exist in. There's so much depth that I never get bored reading them. I know the style is not for everybody, but it really suits me. The style of writing where you could spend, 4 pages describing a tree. I'm not opposed to that. So, this series of books I love, and I've got it in French now, so I've got to practice my French more. And I've actually got it in Arabic as well, although it's way, way beyond my reading level. in Arabic, like so far beyond my reading level. It's hilarious that I have it already, but I love it that much. So, number 9, most beautiful book or deck this year. I'm not sure I have a candidate for the most beautiful book this year. I mean, they're all lovely, but nothing jumps out as particularly stunning. But probably the deck I've gotten this year that's the most beautiful is this 7th Sphere Tarot de Marseille. I know some people don't like gilding, and I haven't yet experienced the cheap gilding of mass market decks that apparently hurts some people's hands, but it's so silky smooth, it's wonderful. And again, the colors, the art style, they just, I don't know, it really, like these sorts of purples, very much my thing. That's beautiful. So that would be the most beautiful deck that I've gotten this year. And then the last question, number 10, is what book or deck do you want by the end of the year, or are you still waiting on? So I've ordered a book called Plans of the Devil by Corian Boyer because I found it slightly miraculously in Canada at a reasonable price. It hasn't come in yet. I think it's shipping from somewhere in Europe. Could be England, I'm not sure. So I'm waiting on that one, and then I'm waiting for the Unfolding Path Tarot, and I think that's supposed to come out somewhere late summer or in the fall. I'm not sure exactly when, I've forgotten. So those are the 2 that I'm still waiting on, and if I do some sort of year-end wrap-up, with any luck, I'll have them by then. So that was my mid-year tarot and or book tag check-in, and so that was actually kind of fun. Little reminder of what I've read so far this year. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.